127. Oh, hello. Hi. We're live, I would assume. The music's no longer playing. Welcome to episode 127 of The Unusual Suspects. My name is Rob Gargiulo. Don't tune out. Vinny will be here. That's a lie. He's not coming, but I want you to stick around anyway. We have a great cast and a great show in store for you today. We have our cast of usual suspects joining us. We have Brandon Aceto. We have Amy Dangerfield, Connor Walcott, and Viva Frei joining us. We have a bunch of great stories. Well, it's actually not true. I don't know what anybody's stories are. So I just sat here and lied and bamboozled you for the past 2 minutes. I know that we have stories.
Figure of speech.
Whether they're great or not will be up for you to determine. I can tell you I will be covering the possible deorbiting of the International Space Station. Brandon, what are you going to be covering today?
I'm going to melt your minds today. So we're going to talk about why, I'm not going to swear, why Teddy Roosevelt should be taken off of Mount Rushmore immediately because he's a disgusting traitorous piece of garbage and nobody knows about it. I saw him trending yesterday. It made me furious that people are saying positive things about him. So we're going to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, I hate the national parks so much.
Well, Connor, what are you going to be talking about
I
today?
will be talking about a debate that has been raging online for the last week or so about where people bring their kids, whether that's weddings, the Oval Office, or many other locations. Are kids in too many places? Are there kids in not enough places? We'll discuss.
Awesome. Viva?
Well, maybe we'll get into that when we get into yours as to what Elon's kid actually said to Trump when he was sitting there, because the people
hush your mouth.
Well, they hush your mouth. You're not the president. You shouldn't be here. I will be
What?
talking about a lawsuit against DOGE and Elon Musk that was so frivolous, even the Jamaican-born descendant of commie reformers in Jamaica had to say enough is enough and dismissed the request for a temporary restraining order against Doge Elon Musk AL.
Very interesting. My story will also involve Elon Musk, so we should just change this to the Elon Musk Hour, and we'll just cover all things Elon.
The unusual Musk specs.
I am also covering an Elon Musk. We should really probably communicate about our stories beforehand. But no, I'm going to be talking about the billionaire baby trap, Ashley St. Clair. It's kind of old news at this point, but we haven't talked about it
It's
yet.
old.
So.
It happened 3 days ago.
No, it happened a week ago. It was last Friday.
It was Valentine's Day
when she made the announcement.
Yeah,
so.
and I'm very
It's a fast
interested.
news cycle.
I'm very interested in that story because it came out of nowhere. It's very interesting, and then she was on X trying to get a hold of him, and it became like this weird. You remember the Maury show? Do you guys remember when they used to do "Who's My
Maury
Baby
Povich.
Daddy"?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
where they would bring guys out and they'd be like, or they would do like live paternity tests, and then these guys would find out that the child that they've raised for their entire lives turned out not to be theirs, and they'd find out on like UPN, not even a good television network. It'd be some weird.
Why wouldn't they immediately
not
test their
fun.
kids' DNA?
What?
Why wouldn't they immediately test their kids' DNA when they're born?
I don't know. It's a reality show. I don't know. Take it up with Maury. All right. By the way, we are only 1,200 subscribers away from 100,000. We are on the road to 100,000 subscribers. So if you're watching today and you've watched for some time and you've not subscribed, or this is your first time, make sure you like the podcast, like today's episode, subscribe, and feel free to comment in the chat. We will be reading the chat throughout the episode. I see a lot of people already in there. Jennifer Ciceros, Sean Picatelli, Condom Dog. Brandon's now watching as well. So Brandon also in the chat.
Yeah.
Infected Mushroom, Fallen 812, and Alan Greenspan among some of the people in the chat. But we'll be monitoring the chat and responding to you as well. We'll also be running polls in the chat. But first, let's start with the International Space Station and Elon Musk's beef with NASA. This came out earlier this week. Here is the article from NBC News. Astronauts versus Musk. Public spat ensues over claims that politics delayed a flight to Earth. And what this is Elon Musk and Donald Trump were interviewed, I believe, by Sean Hannity. And the conversation about the stranded astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, came up. Do you guys know the two stranded astronauts? Do you know when they actually went up to the International Space Station? Anybody have any idea?
Well, I think I want to say it was 6 to 8 months ago. They were supposed to go up for like 13 days or something. Something malfunctioned. The next time they could get them down was 6 months later. It was supposed to be February that they were supposed to come down this February. And that's as much as I remember. And then Ashley St. Clair had a baby, and then we stopped talking about the stranded astronauts.
So these guys went up. They've been stranded on the ISS since June of 2024. Originally, it was supposed to be a 1-week stay. This is like Gilligan's Island.
3-hour tour.
A 3-hour tour where they're now stuck in space, and it's been since June. So we're in February now. So what is that?
It's 6 months. It's 7 months now. This is the stuff of nightmares. Like this is it's like taking an elevator. You think you're going to be up on the floor in 3 minutes, and then you're stuck there for 24 hours. Except this is in outer space where no one can hear you scream. How did they get food? Do you know how they got food?
I have no idea. I
I'm
have
sure
no idea
they
how
would bring
got
up reserves, like just in
Not
case.
6 months of. I think they must have gotten a visit from the
good
International
point.
Space Station. Like, you don't go up
No.
for a week trip and bring 6 months worth of supplies.
How did they not get out if they got visited, though?
There was an issue about how they couldn't
door?
come down. I forget what the reason was as to why they couldn't.
I believe it was something to do with the airlock to
Right.
connect to the ship to get them
Yes.
back down or something like that. But yeah, they've been stuck up there, and part of the problem is that the ISS is falling apart around them right
And that's
now.
what we're
That's
going to
where
get
you're
to.
gonna I
yeah.
know,
So
but-
let's play this clip. This is Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and this is where Elon complains or says and accuses the Biden administration of leaving these astronauts stranded on the International Space Station due to political reasons and not actually humanitarian or technological ones. Here's the clip.
You're committed to getting to Mars. You're committed to rescue. You're going to help rescue next month 2 astronauts that I think were abandoned. They dispute that in an interview.
At the president's request, or instruction, we are accelerating the return of the astronauts, which was postponed kind of to a ridiculous degree.
They got left in space.
They've been there. They were supposed to be there 8 days. They're there almost 300.
Biden.
They were yes, they were left up there for political reasons, which is not good.
Okay, it's not good.
Interesting.
Now,
So, I mean, they go on to say, and Elon says, we're going to have a vehicle up there by March to be able to return them and bring them back
By
to Earth.
March. I mean,
So now you're already in, so you've been stuck there since June. We're now in the end stages of February, and they're looking to mid to late March, early April before they can get rescued. So these people have spent almost 10 months by the time they get back, if they get back, almost 10 months in space. But to what Connor said, and we'll get into it in just a second, there may be a even bigger issue regarding the actual structural integrity of the International Space Station. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so has Boeing said anything about this? Because this is their problem. And, like, in addition to all the planes that have been falling out of the sky, like, they get, like, 4x the amount of money that Tesla gets or that SpaceX gets, and they're having all these problems. So why isn't Boeing being held accountable and speaking on this at all?
I don't know, but it's somebody that did speak out. Well, this is a Danish astronaut. I had no idea the Danes go to space. Anybody else know that the Danish had a space program?
We probably funded it.
With USAID money. So this is an astronaut, a Danish astronaut, Andreas Morgensen, and he wrote on Twitter, Elon, I have long admired you and what you have accomplished, especially at SpaceX and Tesla. You know as well as I do that Butch and Suni are returning with Crew 9, as has been the plan since last September. Even now, you are not sending up a rescue ship to bring them home. They are returning on the Dragon capsule that has been on the ISS since last September. Elon Musk then replies to that tweet and says so eloquently, and I quote, you are fully retarded. SpaceX could have brought them back several months ago. I offered this directly to the Biden administration, and they refused. Return was pushed back for political reasons, you idiot.
I like it. So this guy is beyond a subtard. He's the full tard. This is wild if it, in fact, turns out to be true. I presume Elon is not going to make a public statement that is going to be demonstrably false.
Yeah.
That they said, no, we don't want to accept your help because you're helping Orange Man bad. And so we're actually going to have 2 sacrificial lambs stuck up. By the way, was it Jean-Paul Sartre who said hell is other people? I mean, I don't know what's worse, solitary confinement or being locked in close confinement with somebody for 10 months.
Probably
Well, here's the
solitary.
question then.
Definitely solitary is worse.
Yeah, I think we discussed it a while back. Are they boinking up there?
Ugh.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think
Wait, how can you boink
how
in
could you-
zero gravity?
I don't
Oh,
know,
you can
man.
figure it out. If
You-
there's
you're
a will,
locked-
if there's
locked
a
in a
will,
room-
there's a way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
listen, I'm sure
locked in a
that-
room with somebody for 10 months. I'm sure you can figure it out if the desire's there. But
Do they shower? I mean, how do they shower?
they have to have some kind
bodily
of facility,
fluids.
but yeah, like that's
Brandon!
water turns into a orb.
overtly perverted.
far.
That's for me to do.
It's science terms.
So what's interesting is the guy responds back, Andres, the Danish astronaut, says, what a lie, and from someone who complains about lack of honesty from the mainstream media. But this led me down a weird rabbit hole that involves a platform that I think many of our viewers may be familiar with, 4chan. Now, from my understanding, 4chan is not even as extreme as it gets. Apparently, there's 8chan as well.
Oh.
Wait, what?
That's largely been banned. in a lot
8chan
of
has
places.
been banned.
Wait
I
until
believe it
you
was
get
right
to-
after January 6th.
Wait until you get to 16chan, 32chan,
Right.
64chan. I'm just.
Oh, I didn't realize. Like, I had no
I had no
idea.
idea. I just made that as a joke. Is that true? That's not.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Chan squared.
So, where
Infochan.
where this goes to, let's pull up this next article. There's an MSN article. Yesterday, after this argument takes place, Elon Musk calls for the preparations for the International Space Station's deorbiting. And in the article, if we could go to the article, Musk calls for preparations to deorbit the ISS, suggesting a timeline of 2 years instead of the scheduled 2030. We can go back, Natalia. That's on me. I'm sorry. Just the actual headline that you had was good. There you go. Good. Elon Musk stated that the ISS has served its purpose and recommended deorbiting it as soon as possible. NASA's existing plan involves deorbiting the ISS in January of 2031. However, right now, according to reports on the internet, and we'll get into them more, but there was a 4chan post that came out from a female whistleblower just a few months ago in late December, where they were claiming that they had been in top secret meetings that the International Space Station was actually structurally falling apart, and the deorbiting could be very dangerous to people here on Earth because if it breaks up over space and falls to Earth, they have no indication or no way of controlling where it lands. Here's the tweet from Elon Musk. It's time to begin preparations for deorbiting the space station. It has served its purpose. There is very little incremental utility. Let's go to Mars. And that led me to this. Here's a Newsweek article from December 19th of last year. NASA responds to rumors of catastrophic ISS deorbit. And what this article is it's an article debunking this next slide right here from 4chan. This was posted on 4chan on the 16th of December. Now, you got to think, how often does Newsweek debunk 4chan posts? Is that a common practice for Newsweek to
They'll
do?
only debunk a 4chan post when the 4chan post is accurate. Because if it's not accurate, there's no need to debunk it, and nobody wants to give 4chan any more attention than it already gets.
And that's the weird thing about 4chan is that many things there are verified, and the media will acknowledge them, just not from 4chan. 4chan makes its way to Twitter, now X, and people talk about it there, and that's what the media will debunk.
So
because they can accept it when it's on a platform like X.
Okay. And this post came out, again, this is the day before that article was written. And in the post, it's an anonymous post, but the title of the post is ISS going down, not a drill. And in the post, the person writes, FEMA Anon here. Posting this before the higher-ups lock everything down. Shit's going sideways with the ISS. We got a briefing this morning. Major structural crack detected. Not some hairline bullshit. We're talking catastrophic failure levels. They're scrambling, but it's too late. They tried to patch it a few months ago, but it's worse than they thought. Chain reaction started last night. No official word yet, but deorbiting is happening and uncontrolled. NASA and Roscosmos are freaking out. They're going to spin it like they planned this, but I'm telling you now, this is an emergency. 5 kilometers per month is the current deorbit rate. So I went to ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT, all right, what happens if we were to deorbit the International Space Station? And this is like under controlled circumstances, nothing. They would send up some type of controlled device that would help control the re-entry over a remote part of the ocean. It would probably burn up when it returns to Earth. It would fall into sea and there'd be no problem.
Which actually, on that point, Rob, I just remembered, I did a report on this like 8 months ago now, I'm seeing, according to the headline there. NASA awards SpaceX $843 million contract to deorbit the ISS in 2030. So SpaceX is heading up the program to bring this thing down.
But what happened?
Unless it crashes by itself.
Well, just so that also, I mean, many people might not know what deorbiting even means. It's when you take something out of orbit and to have it burn up or crash. And so basically, you can't just let it fall out of the sky, is what I understand, and it has to be done in a technologically safe manner, and you can't, I guess, blast it further into outer space so that it becomes space debris?
Well, so I asked ChatGPT, okay, what happens if it were to break apart? Then what would happen with the deorbiting? And what it said was that it would be fragmentation in orbit, which would lead to, so due to structural failure, a collision of space debris or an internal explosion, the pieces would scatter into different orbits. They could linger in space for months or years, depending on their size and altitude. It says that on an uncontrolled reentry without a controlled deorbit burn, Earth's gravity and atmospheric drag would eventually pull the fragments down unpredictably. Pieces would re-enter at different times over various parts of the world. They also say many smaller parts would burn up completely in the atmosphere, but larger sections like titanium tanks, steel trusses, and modules, they could survive re-entry and impact the ground or ocean at random locations. If fragments landed in a high populated density area like a city, they would cause serious damage, injuries, and deaths. They also say that an uncontrolled deorbit could initiate what's called the Kessler syndrome risk, which means a chain reaction of satellite collisions that would make low Earth's orbit unusable.
That sounds like a bit of an exaggeration.
Then I asked ChatGPT, would FEMA be involved? Because it goes back to the original post. The person said they were FEMA anonymous. Would FEMA be involved in this? And it says, yes, FEMA would actually be involved. It would help track the debris in real time and then help with any type of evacuations that the government may put in place, and also help with the rebuilding mission if there was any structures that were injured. So the final piece of this is the following 4chan post. If we could go to the next 4chan post. Sorry, I was on a 4chan rabbit hole yesterday reading about all of this. And what this links back to is a 4chan post from back in 2011, April 16th of 2011. Somebody went on 4chan and predicted that the International Space Station was going to break apart in orbit. They said that they had a dream-like event where they felt like they were sleeping, but they were living reality. And they were living a different reality than what we're accustomed to, but they weren't asleep. They also weren't awake. It was some kind of weird middle state. And the person claims that they predicted or they foresaw that the International Space Station would break apart, it would deorbit into Earth, and what would happen is it would initiate that. This is where it gets weird. If the rest wasn't weird enough, it's going to initiate a nuclear war that breaks out between Russia, the United States, and China. The nuclear war will then be catastrophic to humanity, but will also usher in aliens. And aliens will then invade, and these aliens are really bad aliens, according to this person's post, what they viewed while they were in some type of
it sounds like a DMT trip. How did they get from the failure to the nukes? Like, what was the connection there?
All they said was that the deorbiting and the breakup of the International Space Station led to the beginnings of the nuclear holocaust.
Maybe one of those things where, remember how Russia almost fired nukes at us because they like had a misreading on their signal?
But that I can understand. The connection between something falling out of orbit and triggering nuclear war is a tenuous one at that. Also, worth noting that the original ISS, it was supposed to last like 15 years, I think, and it was launched in 2000. So people saying it's going to break apart come the time when its useful life is coming to an end, it's not as a wildly insane prediction as some might think. They've extended its life, but it's normal around 2020 that someone's saying, yeah, there's stress cracks and whatnot.
What a bad return on investment. It's like the most expensive thing ever built. You know that?
I have no idea what it cost or why it is even there at this point.
It cost like $100 million. I think it was the most expensive structure ever built. So we could have sent 1,000 of them to space for instead of helping Ukraine.
So what's interesting about this is that after I sent all of this stuff in the Slack channel. So, hey, first of all, guys, before we move on to the next topic, and Connor is something that I want him to weigh in on here with that he found. But do you guys give any credence to this? Do you guys think that this is just 4chan bullshit and it was some guy that was on a DMT trip that made this up and that it ends up actually just happening to come true, that the International Space Station may be deorbiting because of a structural failure as opposed to a controlled one? Or do you guys think this is all hogwash and made up bullshit?
No, I think it's falling apart because, I mean, like, the government built it, so of course it's going to fall apart and be a disaster. And I mean, anything that FEMA's involved in is bad news. But I think that since Trump and Musk are like going to have a heavier hand in it than they normally would, it'll be less of a disaster than it would be if, like, you know, somebody else was running it. So no, and I don't know, it's some blog post. I don't think there's much to that.
Amy, any credence to this, or are you?
I mean, more so with if I hadn't read the second story, then maybe I would have given it a little bit more credence. The first one, they go and debunk that, but then you read this one and you're like, oh, I
So
don't know.
the second 4chan post delegitimizes the first 4chan
Yeah,
post.
I
is
mean,
what
wait,
you're
wait.
saying.
And did you even finish what happens when the bad aliens come?
Oh, okay, really, actually scary. That's why okay, so this guy
Scarier
claims
than the
it
nuclear
is.
war.
Well, according to this guy, if you survive the nuclear war, the aliens come down, and what the aliens
Enslave
do
you.
is that, no, even worse, they actually shed your skin from you.
Wow.
So they remove your skin, but you're still alive, and then they put you in, like, these tanks that you float in formaldehyde or whatever, and then they reuse your skin, and the aliens wear your skin to trick people into, like, okay, say I'm Humberto, and you live with Humberto, and the aliens invade. Well, I'm the alien. I go and I kill Humberto. I wear his skin suit. I mimic his mannerisms,
Be a little
and I
loose on you
convince
there,
you to
buddy.
come out of hiding. Then when you come out of hiding, because you're like, oh, it's my buddy Humberto, then the alien kills you, and then they steal your skin, and it just replicates.
that's-
itself.
I'm
sounds
so
like-
sorry I asked.
Yeah,
Oh my
That sounds as
goodness.
dumb as the movie Face Off, where they like remove the guy's skin on his face, and
Face
suddenly
Off-
Face Off was an
Suddenly-
amazing movie.
Thank
You
you.
should.
It was entertaining, but it's so stupid that they change their skin on their face,
first
and
of all,
suddenly they have the
Nick
same
Cage
voices,
is the
mannerisms.
best.
Just so we appreciate
Oh.
what they are describing is literally Men in Black, where the alien comes down and
it's
puts all the
Face Off,
guy's
except
skin.
with the body.
It's also mixing a little frazzle drip in there, so that person probably had some, some deep dives into
Invasion
the
of the Body
Clintons.
Snatchers and the Matrix and all that other, like, it's insane.
But the-
Viva, all right, any credence to this, or do you
No,
think it's all, because we got to move on?
The delusions are always based somewhat on reality, and then they go into farcical, land. What the hell's happening with the two people that are still stuck out there? That's where we started. Like, so they're waiting until March now, and then we're going to see if Elon goes up. And it's wild. I have no doubt, when they got stuck in the caves in Indonesia, in Thailand, Elon was going to send in a submarine. I have no doubt he offered his assistance, and I would not be surprised that the Bidens turned it down for political purposes.
The most interesting, or the person whose input I'm most interested in is Connor's, and the reason why, Connor, is because of what you brought to my attention regarding something that has been going on or went on the International Space Station prior to these reports. Could you tell the audience
Yes.
what that is?
So, yet another 4chan post, as it turns out. There are reports, verified reports, but unverified that this is actually the way it went down, where there was, in 2018, a female astronaut on the ISS who was accused of sabotaging a Russian shuttle and also breaking a bunch of stuff on the ISS because she wanted to be sent home early because she was worried about what her boyfriend was doing while she was in space.
Oh my god.
It's, like I said, take it with a grain of salt. We have just established that 4chan is nuts. I don't think anybody was unaware of that going in. But the story itself is true, that there was a large hole discovered in a Russian shuttle, and the Russians accused this female astronaut who was aboard, because she was from the United States, they said she sabotaged it. This 4chan post claims that, she was so desperate to get sent home, she was, mad at being there after like a week, and they told her, hey, your next shuttle home is not for another 9 months.
Should have
So
ejected her.
Yeah, she immediately started backing up toilets, breaking computers, throwing tools out airlocks. She was trying to make it so that they had to fire her from space, according to this post.
Wow.
I don't know if it's true, but there are, it does expose the fact that there are major structural failures. That's verified.
Like all because of her.
Yeah, they're saying it might be because of her, it might be because of other things. But I mean, the shuttle or the ISS has been up there for almost 30 years now. Parts are breaking down, radiation and meteor impacts and everything that have caused it to start collapsing. And maybe possible human intervention is making it fail as well.
We're going to find out that hole was actually USAID money investing in international glory holes to see how it works in outer space.
All right, well, thank you for you guys for paying attention or joining me. By the way, we've got 1,090 1,067 people watching live right now on YouTube. Guys, we are actually now only 1,100 subscribers away. So if you are joining us, this is your first time, or you're a repeat customer and you have not subscribed yet, do it, because we are on the road to 100,000 and we need your help to get there. By the way, shout out to everybody that's currently in the chat. We've got Steph, Chris O'Neill, Steve OC, Amazing Disgrace, Karan Tankor, Kai Moore, and many more. Thank you for watching. Let's go next to our next segment. Viva Frei, host of the Viva Frei podcast? I know it's Barnes and...
I got Viva Frei, which
Okay.
is daily, usually at 12:30.
Okay.
We got the Viva Barnes Law for the People Sunday night, where we talk about all things law-related politics. And so it's great. It's a fun Sunday night show, and it's a fun daily show. And I put out a car vlog about this yesterday, where I go in my car and...
Oh, I like that. Car vlog.
A car vlog, but
it actually sounds French. I'll have the car vlog.
But it's a vlog, VLAWG. Like, it's a vlog, a video blog, but it's out of my car, and it's a law vlog, hence law vlog. Yeah, no, today. Not
so
to
many,
leave.
so many layers to that.
So yeah, there's a lot of play on words in that one. Go ahead.
So the story of the day, I mean, we're going to not leave Elon for a little bit, and this is a win for Doge. It's a very big win, but when I refer to the judge as a commie judge, I'll explain why. She's literally the descendant of commie revolutionaries out of Jamaica and foreign-born, which leads to that you might not want Canadian judges, you might not want foreign judges sitting on federal benches, bringing in subversion to these United States of America. The bottom line, Doge has been making some massive headway, discovering wasted funds everywhere, and people have been freaking out about Elon accessing personal data, yada, yada, yada. Okay, this judge, Judge Tanya Chutkan, does the name ring a bell for anybody?
She was one of Trump's cases. I don't remember which one it. Wasn't the classified documents one, was it?
No, it wasn't. That was Jack Smith in Florida. Yeah. She was the election interference subversion of democracy out of D.C. Yes. Also brought by Jack Smith, the special counsel Jack Smith. His name is going to come up here. The state of New Mexico was seeking a temporary restraining order enjoining Doge from doing what Doge is supposed to do by virtue of executive order. Elon Musk being a what do they call him? A special government employee. So this is the lawsuit. This is the front page. You see the plaintiff is state of New Mexico versus Elon Musk et al. It's Doge, President Trump. And, you know, I highlight certain words just so people understand what they mean. The special government employee is the designation that is given to Elon Musk to come and help the government do what it's supposed to do. The injunction that a temporary restraining order, you all know what that is. It's basically like enjoining someone from being prohibited from doing something, emergency basis. You get TROs of like, you know, don't have contact with X, Y, and Z.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there's guys here that work for this company that have them with gals.
They are
Tony
frequent.
Naemi. I'll call him out right now. That guy pervert. Okay, go ahead.
So this is what they were seeking in their entirely reasonable temporary restraining order. It's basically, don't let Doge do anything. Don't let the employees get access to anything. Don't let them cancel any government programs. Don't let them fire any government employees. You can take your time and read through the insane orders that they were seeking from this judge. New Mexico was one of the 14 plaintiff states. I think something along those lines. And you may remember New Mexico as a state being a crazy, batshit, far left, state. Do you remember what the governor of New Mexico once sought to do out of New Mexico?
No.
If she, by virtue of emergency order, I'll read it, in September 2023, the New Mexico governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, declared a 30-day public health emergency in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. The emergency order banned carrying firearms in public places, in state property, yada, yada, yada. So they had learned their lesson from the lessons of COVID, which is we can do whatever the hell we want, violate the Constitution, so long as we invoke emergency needs to do it, and screw your Constitution. This is the nature of the plaintiff in this lawsuit. The lawsuit was so frivolous that even this commie judge Chutkan could not issue the order, grant the TRO, and basically said, look, you want us to, there's no emergency, there's no imminent irreparable harm here by any means. So I'm not going to go in and say, you guys fear that Elon might do something terrible, might interfere with your rights and whatever. If it happens, you come back. But it's not the mere prospective fear of potential harm that qualifies for the criteria of issuing a temporary restraining order, which is like immediate harm, irreparable harm, balance of inconvenience, all these other things.
Which, by the way, never works, right? Like when it's on a romantic level, right? Oh, it is a piece of paper that tells the guy, you got to stay away from the girl, leave her alone.
Well,
but then once they break that order, because I know women, and I'm not women that had them out against me. Let me preface this conversation with that. No, but I dated a girl that had a very violent ex who, I'll be quite frank, it's the mother of my 15-year-old. She had a very violent ex. He was a very, very bad dude. At one point, he kidnapped her. She ended up breaking free. He went to jail for a long time. When we first started dating, she had a restraining order out on him. You know what he did? He came to the house while we were at her house, in her apartment, and he threw a Molotov cocktail on her porch and lit the entire apartment on fire. And then he went to trial and was cleared in trial, but we know it was him. I know for a fact because I walked outside and I saw him driving away from the scene of the crime. Restraining orders realistically don't, unless they're practiced in law, they're just a theory. It's a piece of paper. It says you can't do this, but people can violate them anyway and then deal with the consequences after.
When it comes to relationships, there's no rational thought there. It's basically someone who's emotionally involved and will go to jail. In business, if you violate it, there's financial penalties. It's more of a practical reason why you would abide by the TRO.
So you can't just act like it didn't happen and continue
No,
to proceed.
you'll be held
end
in
up getting in
contempt.
trouble.
Oh, yeah,
that was my point.
Yeah, when it comes to business, you'll get fined. You'll be held in contempt. When it comes to like those types of relationships, people go to jail for for life for those types of emotional things.
If DOGE employees start throwing Molotov cocktails at people, I'd imagine there would be repercussions.
Okay.
So if that's what you're worried about.
Well, bring this one back up and then go to the last paragraph and expand that so the old people in the crowd can read it, that being me. This is where the judge is throwing a little bit of a bone, saying, look, your order is ridiculous. I mean, it's outlandish. We're not granting it. You haven't shown any urgency. Your mere fear is not a big issue. But it says plaintiffs legitimately call into question what appears to be unchecked authority of an unelected individual, remember these words, and an entity that was created by Congress over which it has no oversight. In these circumstances, it must be indisputable that this court acts within the bounds of its authority. Accordingly, it cannot issue the temporary restraining order, especially one as wide-ranging as the plaintiff's request, without clear evidence of imminent irreparable harm, yada, yada, yada. She's saying here, it appears that there's someone with unchecked authority who wasn't really appointed by Congress, over which Congress has no oversight. Does that sound familiar to any name that we had mentioned earlier?
Special Counsel Jack Smith.
Exactly. Special Counsel Jack Smith. The argument raised in the documents case in Florida, and it was raised in an amicus brief, and I forget, I think you want to say by Judicial Watch, but one of these amicus briefs raised this argument that ended up getting retained as an argument to disqualify Jack Smith out of Florida, which is he never went through any senatorial confirmation hearing. He was handpicked by Garland, a private citizen, to act as special counsel, basically as the bulldog, sickened dog, by the government. Judge Chutkan knows exactly all about that. And she's saying, look, Elon Musk looks exactly like what Jack Smith actually was. And, even though we're scared of that, here, let me throw you these arguments so you might come back with these arguments more fleshed out. I still can't issue your TRO. When I said the judge was a commie judge, are we reading this one now? Judge Chutkan denies Trump's request to recuse herself in a federal election subversion case. She's a commie, biased, partial judicial hack. And I'm only shocked that she actually issued the proper ruling in this one. And I dare say it's because the political permission slip to be maniacs on the bench has been revoked. When I called her a commie, it's literally, I'm not picking on anybody because they're from Jamaica in particular. The scion of Marxist revolutionaries, I still don't know what scion means, but I believe it means descendants. Her grandfather was literally a communist revolutionary who went to jail in the 50s for subverting Jamaican rule of government. I don't even know what it was. Wow. She's a self-described Marxist. She's imported that to the bench in the persecution of Donald Trump. And if Joe Biden, or I should say Kamala Harris, had gotten reelected, this commie revolutionary on the bench would have had no qualms locking Donald Trump up for a very long time. But for the fact that he won the election and she no longer has the political permission slip to follow through on that, these cases have fallen apart and she's been forced to issue a reasonably judicially justified ruling to dismiss the TRO, if only for now.
It's very interesting what we learned. Okay, how many of you are familiar with what happened in the 2022 Brazilian election?
Mildly.
Yeah,
Mildly.
obviously, yeah.
I think we are more well versed today because of the interview that was conducted earlier this week that we were a part of than we were, say, 6 months ago. Amy, how much have you paid attention to it?
Not too much.
Connor?
Only a little bit.
Okay, it's frightening, scary, the similarities, and Patrick has explained this on the podcast himself, the similarities between Bolsonaro and Trump, and the only difference between why Bolsonaro is in the position he is in today and the position Trump is in today is because Trump had a 6-3 majority of the Supreme Court, whereas Bolsonaro is at a disadvantage 9-2 against him. And the things that they have done in Brazil to prosecute Bolsonaro, it was the fake COVID vaccine passport. The whale, where he rode up on a jet ski near a whale and they claimed that he was harassing wildlife. They are now charging him with not only because I don't know if you guys know this. Did you guys know Brazil had their own January 6th?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
They had a January 8th where they stormed the Capitol, of which we went inside when we were in Brazil.
And our CIA was on the ground there.
It's very interesting that you look at the parallels between what happened and is ongoing in a third world country and how, because they didn't have the majority of the Supreme Court, they are able to get away with this. Whereas if Trump did not have the majority of the Supreme Court, then they would have been able to keep him off the ballots across multiple states, Michigan, Colorado. Then all of a sudden it's a lot easier to prosecute him.
The attempted poisoning.
Lula that they're charging Bolsonaro with now. It's crazy.
No, God acted. I mean, it's crazy that Obama only got to appoint one judge during 8 years and Trump got to do 3 in 4 years. Like, that's the hand of God.
Which literally could be what's going to save the United States of America, is that Trump didn't end up getting kept off the ballots illegally, and the Supreme Court didn't rule in the favor of the courts that were deciding that, because now Donald Trump is able, because now he's able to run. Bolsonaro is not able to run till 2030.
As of right now, yeah.
As of right now, he's not allowed to run till 2030, and he has been accused of many things, but convicted of...
And they're trying to throw 38 years of jail time at him with this latest thing.
Which...
It's insane. Appreciate also, like, among all those miracles, Trump also survived that first July 13 assassination.
So did
attempt.
Bolsonaro.
And
Bolsonaro got stabbed, and he's like 68 when he was stabbed.
And we had Joe Manchin. Think about all the things Joe Manchin protected us from, with like being that one vote that held out with all the things they wanted to do. That's another thing not to overlook.
And look at how different the country would have been if Obama had been able to appoint Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. Imagine what it would have been like if Ruth Bader Ginsburg had retired, like so many Democrats were calling on her to do during the Obama administration, rather than holding out her position until her death under Trump.
Yeah.
And then Trump decided he was going to fill that vacancy right at the end of his term because that was his prerogative to do. And anyone, trying to say he had no right to do it and should have left it open for Biden clearly does not understand how these appointments work.
What they did to Merrick Garland, they refused to give Garland his confirmation.
Exactly.
So he never got in. What they did with Bolsonaro in January 8th to create the January 6th, it's what they did in Canada. It's what they're trying to do to Kalin Georgescu in Romania. This is how they subvert democracy, and it does have all of the fingerprints of the usual suspects.
If you want to find something very interesting, a rabbit hole that I started going down when we went to Brazil, there is one Supreme Court justice that seems to have a hard-on for Elon Musk, for Bolsonaro. His name is Alexandre
de
Moraes. And
he's the guy who wears a cape.
He got blocked today. You saw that?
I didn't know if he got blocked or he pulled down his own account. What's very interesting, look into who he replaced in the Supreme Court, in Brazilian Supreme Court. Do you guys know the name Teori Zavascki? He was the former...
Only because you told me about it.
Okay, he is the former Supreme Court justice who was leading the investigation into Operation Car Wash. Do you guys know what Operation Car Wash was? It was a Brazilian. Could you explain a little bit better than I?
Yeah, it was a giant.
Thank you.
It was a giant oil operation. They discovered a huge deposit of oil in the ocean, and it was like a big cash cow for them. And turned out that like the vast majority of politicians were like not just skimming money off of it, but like raking in money off of it,
including Lula, who was being investigated for this until he went to jail. Did he go to jail for Operation Car Wash?
Yes, for the apartment that was supposedly attached to it.
So this guy was in jail and is now the current president of Brazil, which is insane.
Well, remember, he's also an open communist. And like you guys obviously observe it because Esdras, our tech guy, who is from Brazil, went with you guys on that trip.
Well, it's a communist country. Like their whole thing is set up like a union, like the way their work structure is set up.
Lula was a former union leader. Like Esdras is the most quiet, reserved, polite guy you'll ever meet. Until he talks about Lula, in which case you will see him rise to a level of fury that you didn't even think a guy like that was capable of. And it's amazing, but it shows how much the Brazilian people hate their own government right now.
And what's super interesting is Alexandre de Moraes, the way that he ends up getting onto the Supreme Court and has now ruled this country was a mysterious plane crash involving Teori Zavascki, the same judge that was investigating Operation Car Wash and was heading that investigation, dies mysteriously in a plane crash. They then take Alexandre de Moraes and they put him in his place, and that guy has now led a dictatorship, allegedly, in Brazil with a 9-2 advantage on the Supreme Court. So look into that, because I started digging in. If you want to find an interesting paper trail or an interesting rabbit hole to go down this weekend, the death and the plane crash of Teori Zavascki is very interesting. Viva, did you have anything else?
No. I said we're cutting into Amy's time.
Yes, let's go into some baby mama drama.
Yeah.
One of the most famous people in the world and one of the richest people in the world. Congratulations to him. He just had his 13th child, allegedly, with influencer Ashley St. Claire.
Yes.
Amy, what else can you tell us?
Yes, that is her name. So, as we all know, Ashley took to X on Friday. It was Valentine's Day. And she went ahead and she made this tweet. We can go ahead and pull it up here. 5 months ago, I welcomed a new baby into the world. Elon Musk is the father. I have not previously disclosed this to protect our child's privacy and safety, but in recent days, it has become clear that tabloid media intends to do so, regardless of the harm it will cause. I intend to allow our child to grow in a normal and safe environment. For that reason, I ask the media to honor our child's privacy and refrain from invasive reporting. So this is the very first tweet that came out. It was not able to be verified immediately. In fact, Elon didn't really say anything at all up until the point that Milo Yiannopoulos posted this specific tweet. Now, he put this out essentially digging up a tweet from 2020 where it seems like Ashley is trying to get Elon Musk's attention, his contact number, and she says, well, he actually has 7. He's got a kid with a woman already. Seems unlikely to work out. And she says, well, he actually has 7 kids and goes through women pretty fast. So Milo posts this, essentially pointing out that this may have been her master plan all along. And at this point, Elon Musk replies, whoa. And up until this point, there has been no statement. This is the very first public thing that he has said on the matter. And then shortly after that, we then see Ashley St. Clair's response. So she responds to his response to Milo. And she says, Elon, we've been trying to communicate for the past several days, and you have not responded. When are you going to reply to us instead of publicly responding to smears from an individual who just posted photos of me in underwear at 17 years old? I guess
50, no, at 15.
Oh,
That's a
15,
relevant
sorry.
age difference.
Yes,
She's talking about Milo there?
I believe she is talking about Milo there, yes. So she puts out this post. What is interesting, though, is the very next day after Valentine's Day, when she puts out this initial tweet announcing to the world that she's having this child and asks everybody to politely respect her privacy. The very next day, a post comes out, a spread of photographs and an article with the New York Times sharing this news with the entire world. Now, I find this a little bit...
It was New York Times or New York Post?
Oh, New York Post, sorry. Yes, correct. What I find interesting about this is if she, wants people to respect her privacy, and this is a decision that she had just made, did she book that interview with the New York Post like that same day for a 24-hour turnaround?
Teacher, one question.
Yes.
I had heard rumors on the internet that her post on Valentine's Day was out of spite because Elon was out on a date with another woman. Do you have any information to confirm or deny?
I do not have any information to confirm or deny.
It's only a rumor. In as much as I can verify things, I had heard that, and I was like, oh, then that becomes a little bit.
Who did you see post?
It
was a number of people who were speculating because
Okay.
you don't drop that on Valentine's Day by accident. And
Of
my
course.
takeaway
So
from this
very coordinated
especially
and
it's
planned.
5.5 months after the
to
birth.
quote the old proverbs, I'm not saying she's a gold digger, but you fill in the rest of that.
You can't turn
expression.
a hoe into a house. What? Not saying she is. Hoes don't act right. That's a ludicrous lyric.
Do you have the other picture from the New York Post article
which
with the
is-
chessboard?
No, I didn't.
Well,
This
if
is
anybody
only-
can pull that up and bring it up,
Yeah,
there's a
no.
hilarious thing. The chessboard's not set up properly. The bishop and the knight were inverted on both sides of the chessboard.
Oh,
Isn't there
no.
a weird history with her as well, where she started out as like a Twitter account called Sex Laptop? Has anybody ever read the background of her?
No, I thought it was actually quite the opposite. And so that's what I was going to bring up next is that, Elon Musk, he's always been very vocal about his stance on children. There aren't enough children. We need to repopulate the earth. And he is clearly trying very hard to be a big part of that. He's been very vocal about it. And so, I don't understand, number one, why she's acting surprised. But number two, it seems a little bit hypocritical given the fact that she's this conservative influencer, right? Like she was supposedly, I'm not too familiar with her work, but supposedly a big proponent of anti-degeneracy, monogamous relationships, having children in wedlock. And now come to find out that this isn't her first, but actually now her second child I believe, out of wedlock. So I'm not too sure about what you asked, Rob.
I found it here. It's from the Express Tribune. I don't know what newspaper that is, but here's the headline. Sex laptop Ashley St. Clair's passed under scrutiny after revealing Elon Musk had fathered her child. And according to this article, she used to go by an alias, an online persona known as Sex Laptop. Under this alias, she reportedly shared explicit content and expressed controversial views. Now, what that means is whatever the person who read this or who wrote this article, what they deem as controversial views. But from what I remember, it was like almost slightly pornographic material that she was accused. I'm not saying she did. I'm reporting what the report says or this article says, but it was that she was sharing like, you know, almost nude or nude content on the internet under this online alias.
I got in not trouble, but there was some controversy the day of, because when she made this announcement, a number of actual conservative influencers were saying congratulations. Posobiec said, "God bless you and your family." And then you guys know Jeremy from The Quartering. I like everybody involved in this. I met Ashley. She's a fine person. She's not going to be without a daddy, and the kid's not going to grow up in poverty. But everyone, Quartering takes the position that this is very fundamentally anti-conservative, and you shouldn't be, praising her or wishing her well. And I said, look, it's not the end of the world. Not everybody has a baby in marriage, and Elon's done this a few times before. That everyone's a consenting adult, presumably, assuming she didn't poke holes in condoms, which I don't think she did. And so that's it. You wish it's the normal thing to do, but apparently people, I never knew her as a conservative influencer. She has taken positions about sugar mommies being a bad thing, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't wish someone well after having a baby, but it might make her, like everyone else on earth, a bit of a hypocrite.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not really familiar with her work. It could be possible that people are just throwing around this phrase conservative influencer to make the story more provocative and more salacious. So that could possibly make sense.
Did you see the thing where she tweeted that getting off Adderall and birth control is the best thing I ever did, and Elon responded to it?
No, I did not see that tweet.
He responded to me. He's like, "Oh yeah, totally," or something like that.
Is this like one of the old tweets that got dug up?
Yeah, it was before this, but yeah, it's like so he acknowledged that he knew that she wasn't on birth control.
Right.
Well, this is the same kind of division that Viva was talking about that broke out when a lot of people were congratulating Dave Rubin and his husband for adopting their sons. Many conservatives were saying, "Hey, great, you guys are promoting family and everything," and other conservatives were like, "We don't really support gay men adopting babies, even if they're conservative ones, or creating babies through surrogacy in a lab and everything." And that was the division.
You have a problem with that?
Yes, big time.
And
gay people should not be allowed to create lab babies.
But I feel like that runs the risk of going way down a rabbit hole.
Yes,
that we
and
might
this
not
is Amy's
necessarily
segment. We can discuss gay adoption
at a bar later. Point is that this is a real issue that
though.
Ashley presents herself as some kind of conservative, at least socially speaking, and having kids out of wedlock is not really the most conservative thing to be doing. So I'm glad that she chose not to abort the baby, because if her goal was to have Elon on the hook for child support, then obviously she wouldn't. But either way, it's better for a child to be born than to be aborted.
To be murdered.
But the way this was handled was very weird, because clearly she went to the Meghan Markle school of privacy requests of, we demand privacy. Now we're going to go on an interview circuit to tell you how much we want to be left alone.
Right. And then also kind of crying for attention in that New York Post article as well. Number one, with the pictures, like she was dressed very provocatively. But then there was also a quote from one of her friends, Emma Jo Morris, who said that St. Clair had asked Musk for help as the media probed their relationship, but he refused, leaving her to deal with the fallout alone. Morris described St. Clair as feeling jilted and terrified. So my issue is it seems like she wants us to feel sorry for her. That seems to be the stance that she's taking now. And the manner in which she's going out there and trying to get his attention, making these posts on X, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the very classy, on-brand, conservative influencer thing to do. So I see why people are taking issue with that. The other thing,
is Elon, really, when you get right down to it.
It's entirely possible, though, that it's not even his kid, because it's a simple thing. If it is his kid, you get a court order to do a paternity test, and if it's his kid, then he's going to have to pay.
5.5 months out is what when I first saw the post, and I thought I didn't fully connect that it was 5.5 months ago.
Right.
I gave birth. If they haven't been able to come to an arrangement within 5 months, it'll be really funny if it turns out that it's not his kid and that it's something more of a.
Now, I was going to ask,
Viva, how difficult is it though to get a court or paternity test if you're making that allegation?
To me, it's shocking that wouldn't have been done already. Because when the post was made, I didn't know that there was, it was, I think it was before the fight broke out. So like, oh, she's announcing it. Good for her. Nice. And it's a planned thing between her and Elon. And he's got another kid with another woman and he wants to repopulate the earth. Good.
Yeah.
Then the fight breaks. I was like, okay, well, congratulations nonetheless.
Right.
But what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, obviously, if it is kid, he will be responsible for, financial contributions and hopefully will be in the kid's life. And this is the next thing I wanted to bring up and ask you all now. Most of you are fathers and a father to be.
Well, I mean, the three of us are, and Brandon's got to have one or two floating around out
stop
there
it.
somewhere.
Oh no! So what I wanted to ask you guys.
Oh,
no.
you.
I've established what I feel about the Ashley Sinclair situation. What do you guys think about Elon Musk? What are his duties and responsibilities in this situation, not only with this child, but all of the other children that he is so intentionally repopulating the earth with? There was some tweets that came out just recently from Grimes, one of his other baby mamas. I believe their child was conceived through IVF.
And that is XAEA12.
Yes.
Yeah. And I believe they have a second one as well.
Yeah.
They have two kids together.
Yeah, I have the names of his children: Nevada, Vivian, Griffin, Kai, Saxon, Damien, XAEA12, Exa, Strider, Azure, Techno, and his youngest child his name remains undisclosed. Whatever happened to like Sarah and
Heavy on the
Steven
X.
and
Lame,
Billy?
boring.
Have
I'm
you
the
seen the
weirdo.
kind of women Elon shacks up with? Like, these are not
the
normal, typically.
I mean, Grimes is pretty. She could look scary looking.
Yeah.
Let's pull up this post though and read here.
It's
So
sweet the way
Grimes
they did it.
actually made this post initially, and then she deleted it. But she said she replied to Elon saying, "Please respond about our child's medical crisis. I'm sorry to do this publicly, but it's no longer acceptable to ignore this situation. This requires immediate attention. If you don't want to talk to me, could you please designate or hire someone who can so that we can move forward in solving this? This is urgent, Elon." She posted this on yesterday, actually.
Oh, wow.
No
At,
way. Wait,
4:55
February
PM.
20th.
and
Yeah.
then she deleted
And
it.
she deleted it, and then someone replied to the deleted post. They said, "I don't pretend to know the man, but I can't help imagining that going public would help anyone." And then she responds and she says, "I'm not giving any details, but he won't respond to texts or calls or emails, has skipped every meeting, and our child will suffer lifelong impairment if he doesn't respond ASAP. So I need him to fucking respond, and I have to apply to public pressure. And if I have to apply public pressure, I guess that's where we are." So my question, obviously, he has a very avant-garde, non-traditional method of repopulating the earth. Clearly, possibly, allegedly not the best dad. As parents, do you guys think that he gets some type of free pass because of the fact that he's busy putting people on freaking Mars and weeding out government corruption?
I think
like, on
he
a
would tell you
moral
that.
level, how do you feel about this situation more
So,
broadly?
I'll start because I have the. How old are your children?
I don't know often. 14, 11, and 8. last
Okay,
I checked.
15 and 5 here. So I've been doing this longer, not by much, but okay.
Well, I've done it more.
I mean, I literally did it twice, and we have to, and now I'm here. So here's the problem. I don't know enough about Elon's relationship with the kids to make a judgment. I can tell you based on my own personal experiences. I find it very difficult for a man that has the schedule that I have to maintain a healthy and prospering relationship with my children. It's an effort to do that, and I only have 2. And they live in the same state as me. They live in the same house as me. I come home and I see them, but it's an hour at night some nights. I just got back from Brazil. I was gone all weekend. We're flying to CPAC tomorrow, so I'm going to be out of town again. It hurts that I don't have that time with them. And I can't imagine, it hurts them. They tell me, "Dad, I wish you were home more." I can't imagine being Elon and being as spread thin as he is and being able to have a relationship with all 13 of those children. If he is finding a way to do it, then I have no problem with him having 13 children. But if you're going to bring children into this world, it's not a simple pump and dump, you're done. There is a lifelong obligation you have to these children, whether or not you agree with their mother on things. I have custody of my 15-year-old. His mother and I don't see eye to eye on most things, but we maintain a relationship for him. It's not easy. It's difficult. And there are times where we go at it and we butt heads, but we never let it affect him. He, from the public postings you're seeing, that is not the same thing. And like, as much as I love my Tesla, as much as I love what he's doing with DOGE, as much as I love the idea of us going to Mars, I don't like the idea of you bringing children into this world, into existence, and then going, well, my job's done. You take care of them now, and I'll throw some money your way every once in a while. To me, that's incredibly irresponsible. It makes me view, if this is accurate and this is the way that he is, it makes me view him in a whole different light. And for me, it washes away all of the good that he's done, because at the end of the day, the only thing that you have when you leave this planet is the children that you've brought into it, and you hope that you're building a better future for them so they can build a better future for their children. And having no relationship in those children's lives, no matter how great it is that we can fly to Mars, it's not doing shit for your kids or the generations of children after them. That's my take.
I say it's the right take. But you know, there are many ways to be an absentee father. In order, the issue is not judging it. It's not ideal, and whether or not Elon is on the emotional spectrum of a typical human is to be determined. He has a very high IQ, might have a different EQ, and if he says he's on the spectrum, he might not be able to make the attachments the way someone who's not on the spectrum would make these attachments and lives that life. But there's plenty of parents who are absentee parents or other circumstances, and you don't raise your kids in ideal circumstances. It's not the end of the world. It's not the best world. And then there's plenty of married couples who have unhealthy relationships, plenty of divorced couples that have better relationships. And I think the other flip side problem, I probably spend too much time with my kids to the point where they say, just go away and leave us alone. But
yeah, but you realize, especially, man, it's hard with my 15-year-old. There are years. I'm always in his life. He's always lived with me. I've had full custody since he was 3. But even now, I look back and I'm like, where did he go? Where did that, I can't get that back. And oh God, I'm going to cry. Fuck. No, I don't want to do it. My dad told me one of the biggest regrets he had was that my dad worked really hard growing up, and really hard. He was a superintendent in schools, but he also made extra money bartending on the weekends. And he wasn't around as much. And one of the things he said when my son was born, because I was a young dad, I was 22 when my son was born. One of the things he said is you have to take every moment that you can with him, because there's going to be a day where you look back and you're going to go, man, I wish I had more time. And now here I am, and he's 15. And look, I spend as much time as I can with him, but I look at it now and I go, man, where did that 10 years go? Because I look at the 5-year-old and I go, oh my God, it's a little version of him. Where did that go? And how did that, we don't see us age, but we see our children age. I see my parents age, and that's time we're never going to be able to get back. So for me, it's like, to miss out on that time, even if it's only 5 months and he has not seen the child, those 5 months are so incredible to bond with your child. I can't imagine not being present when my children are born, or not being there for their major milestones in life. And for him to be totally absent, it's disgusting. Again, if it's true, that's my opinion of it. Connor, you are on the verge of becoming a father. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we're expecting at the end of March. So right there, thank you. And Wednesday, I got the best birthday gift I've ever had. We had the last ultrasound appointment before she's here. We saw her squishy little cheeks and her cute nose. It's a whole person in there. And we can't wait to meet her when she's here. But the Elon subject, it's a question of legacy, because this is a man who is poised to bring humanity to a place it's never been before. This guy might single-handedly make humans an interplanetary species, something that was only dreamed of for all of human history. But what legacy is he leaving as a person? This is Elon, the public figure who might clear out government corruption and put man on Mars and build civilizations on other planets. But if you look at all his children who are old enough to speak out publicly, they hate him. Particularly, there's this trans child who has clearly been lost to what he describes as the woke mind virus. But his other children and many of his baby mamas also talk about he's not an involved father. He's not super involved in their lives, and that sucks. My grandfather, to give an example from my own family, just like Rob did, my grandfather was not a good father. He married my grandmother because she was pregnant with my dad. And they made it abundantly clear that was why they were together, as they built a marriage that lasted another 30 years and then ended in a smoking ruin. And the generational impacts of that continue to echo through my family to this day. In contrast to that, my dad, who would oftentimes be left at his elementary school until after sundown because my grandfather was too busy working to show up and pick him up when he was supposed to, my dad committed to being the most present good dad he possibly could be. He built a godly household where he loved my mom, he loved us, to the point where we were kids and thinking like, my dad's always hovering, like what's he doing? I remember there was a point in time where my family, because we were middle class and my mom had to drive up to Boca for work, we only had one car. And Mondays were my dad's day off. On Monday, he would get on his bike and ride for 2 hours through the blistering Florida heat to get to our school to have lunch with us for half an hour before he would then get back on the bike and ride home. And there were days where he'd show up and my brother and I would be in the cafeteria, we'd go out to eat with him, and we'd roll our eyes and be like, oh, Dad, I wanted to have lunch with my friends today. That's the kind of thing that doesn't hit you until you're an adult, but like the things your parents sacrifice for you, and that's something my dad would do 1,000 times over because it meant he got an extra half hour of having lunch with us, which is why I love my dad so much. And, as I prepare to journey into fatherhood, I hope one day I can be a fraction of the man my dad was and still is. He just drove down for a week to help my sister-in-law with their new baby, just because he wanted extra time with the grandkids. So I'm very happy to be giving him another one that he can pour that love out onto. But getting humanity to another planet really pales in comparison to the true legacy you build, which is the people you leave behind on a personal level. The family, the children, the relationships you have. And yes, I thank Elon for what he's doing and continue to do, but like he has 13 kids, and it's not too late for him to start investing in them as well. And that's kind of a personal calculus that needs to be made. And I pray he makes the right decision for his family.
Yeah.
Well,
you guys got me in my feels about that.
I know the chat's yelling at us. All the estrogen in the room. I'm leaving. Said Steve Bloodlow. Another guy said time slips away from everybody. Suck it up. All right. Well, guess what? I didn't bring the topic up. Amy did, and it made me think about some emotional stuff. Go fuck yourself. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, no. So take the other side of this. Like, I don't have kids yet, but want a ton of kids. Also, I want like 10 kids. But I mean, it's like it's the warrior thing. Like it's a traditional thing that like the guy goes out and like comes back every so often, like, men go out and work and provide for the family. Like, if he's not, like, if that lady, Grimes, is reaching out because she doesn't have money to provide, like, a medical service for the kid, then that's terrible, despicable, like, inexplicable because he has all the money in the world. But if it's an attention thing, like, I'll give the guy a pass. He's, like, doing God's work right now. Like, think about all the lives he saved with Starlink, with what he's doing with DOGE, like, uncovering fraud, like, what he's done with Tesla, what he's done with SpaceX, like, I'll give the guy a pass. He's like, we're not solving for perfection here, Like he sleeps at work, like he drives himself to like being ill a lot of the time with how obsessed he is about work, and he's trying to create like better technology for mankind and like save our planet ultimately. So, like I think he's trying to make up for that now. Like you see him bring in the kid everywhere, and I think we're gonna talk about that next. But so maybe he's acknowledging this now. Maybe he's like, starting to have some degree of regret, and like he obviously loves the kids. His first kid ever actually, Nevada, died of sudden
infant death syndrome.
Yeah, and like I read his book, and like he was an absolute disaster when that happened, like inconsolable for like days and weeks. So maybe there's an element of him like detaching himself a little bit of it. Like he's a weird dude in the way he's wired. So I don't think it's like just he's a bad person because this type of thing.
I've talked about this briefly, and we won't get into it, but to that point, there is a part, I've lost a child as well, and there is a part of detachment where I felt for the first couple of months with my 5-year-old where I did feel detached a little bit from him, where it was hard for me, but I overcame that because I'm normal, and clearly Elon is not normal, not in a bad way, but he's normal brilliant. I'm normal dumb. So it's a complete opposite of abnormal, but I could see why you have that. Also, let's take into account Elon Musk. His dad seems like a complete scumbag.
Yeah.
The guy constantly is doing interviews where he's talking about how shitty Elon is of a person. Can you imagine that's your father figure in life, is a guy that is constantly talking badly about you? And if you read the book by Walter Isaacson, Musk, he talks a lot about, is it Errol Musk, the father?
Yeah.
About Errol and just how shady his life was and how weird Elon's upbringing was. But let's move on to the topic so not everybody tunes away from the male version of The View with Amy. This is Connor bringing up another thing about kids.
Well,
and this is, so is this XAE-A-12?
I'll refer to him as little X because I have no idea how to pronounce
Hold on,
this
his name is... You're not
Just
joking.
X.
No, that's not...
No, it's XAE-112.
They call him X for short, though.
Yeah,
That's his legal name, as in he got away with putting that on
Yes,
legal
it's
docs.
pronounced...
It has a
it's pronounced like a word, but it's...
XAE dash.
Yeah. So I'm glad we hung out on this family subject, because that's actually what I want to get into right now, because the internet has been raging for almost a week on this debate of where is it appropriate to bring kids, where is it appropriate to have kids involved in things. And to start us off, I want to go back a couple weeks. Rob, I believe you guys discussed this on PBD podcast right after it happened, where there was a little bit of controversy over whether Elon should have brought little X into the Oval Office when he did a press conference with Trump. If we can roll this video, we'll see what was going on then.
Kid's picking his nose.
We need to free the builders of America to build. And if we do that, that means you get the economic growth, maybe 3-4%,
no, don't eat it.
5%.
Don't eat it. Nope.
And that means if you can get $1 trillion of economic growth, and you can cut the budget deficit by $1 trillion, between now and next year, there is no inflation.
Oh man, it's digging for
There's
gold
no inflation in 26.
Well, especially
and if the government is not borrowing,
really going at it.
Yeah. But anyway, we can skip to my next headline because it perfectly dovetails in. Trump swaps out Resolute desk in the Oval Office days after Elon Musk's son X appeared to white booger on it. So,
do you really believe that true?
No, I don't. It's apparently because the Resolute desk, the very famous one that's been in there for a century and a half at this point, it just needed some basic maintenance. There's like 6 desks on rotation. But it's kind of funny that the day after, or a couple days after, little X wiped a booger on the Resolute desk, Trump says, I'll work on a new desk for a little while.
He's
clean
a
that up.
germaphobe.
Yeah.
They say that, but when he came, when President Trump came and did PBD podcast, he shook my hand, he shook Patrick's hand, he shook a lot of the people's hands in the room. Germaphobes typically do not do that. They'll go elbow, they'll do fist bump. I've never known germaphobes to go up and shake the hands of complete and utter strangers.
Well, you have to in politics. I think you get over some things, but just blatant nose picking's a different level of
The
germaphobe.
Resolute desk, how long has that been in the office for?
They have an option of different desks they could choose when they get in
but
there.
I believe the original Resolute desk has been there since 1883.
So my point was that there when Bill Clinton was there with Monica Lewinsky? Because if that wasn't dirty enough to get out after that, the booger is going to be in no
like I
competition.
said, I believe they have six desks on rotation that they can use, each of them made out of historic materials and stuff.
It's funny you bring up the Clinton thing. There's this weird movement that I've noticed where we're trying to prop up Monica Lewinsky as someone who was the victim of grooming, and she is now some type of hero. She did like a Time magazine interview, and she's got a new podcast of how she overcame the abuse. Do you guys know how old Monica Lewinsky was when she began her affair with?
22.
22 years old in 1995. Guys, I got to be honest. I understand that there are men that are in positions of power that sometimes abuse that power, and I'm not trying to justify that. But at 22 years old, aren't you a fully developed woman where you can make decisions on your own? It's not like he grabbed a 15-year-old in high school and started... And I'm not defending Bill Clinton's pervert actions, especially what he was doing with the cigar. But is she really a victim at 22 years old?
I'm much more interested in what age when she got... What age she was when she got trained to be a Mossad honeypot.
Exactly. She was groomed by the Mossad, allegedly.
Yeah.
Not Clinton.
I was never on that bandwagon until she said, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. I'm like, oh, so you're voting for the party that allegedly sexually abused you and that ruined your life afterwards, and now you're deciding to vote for them. I was like, oh, now you are, I believe.
That one doesn't make any sense. Like, I get Dick Cheney coming out for Kamala Harris because he had an invested interest in not being thrown in jail for war crimes, in my personal opinion. I don't know if he's actually done that, but you look at the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and none of it made sense. But for Monica Lewinsky to come out, that's the endorsement you want? How many bad endorsements did Kamala Harris get? The Hawk Tuah girl? Did she also throw that in there? Because at this point, if blowjobs are what we're going to use as a barometer for a political endorsement, then Bonnie Blue and the other gal that just got pregnant from banging 1,037 guys, they should be all over endorsing people as well.
Did she get pregnant from that?
Yeah,
I'm going to vomit.
But however, she looks way more pregnant than she would be. Like that session didn't happen that long ago, and I saw her and she had like a full baby bump, and they're like, she's pregnant. I'm like, well, maybe she was pregnant when that happened because there's no way she'd be that pregnant now. It's not like all the sperm made a super baby that developed
They say
quicker.
birth control has what, like a 1 in 1,000 chance of you still getting pregnant, so they figure they just test the odds.
They found it. Okay, she tested it. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go back to yours.
But anyway, that sparked a discussion of, is it appropriate for Elon to have brought his son into the Oval Office? What do you guys think? because I don't believe there's been a child in the Oval Office since JFK's kids.
I do think it was a deliberate, not a ploy, but I don't think it was an accident. And it was done for the photo op, and they're trying to draw some sort of subliminal comparisons between the two transformational governments. I don't think it was an accident. I think it's totally fine. But then again, I brought my kid here a number of times and slap him, give him a computer. The only issue is that you bring your kids into politics and it sort of makes them fair game for the haters in politics, which is
not necessarily true. I remember Rush Limbaugh got a ton of blowback when he referred to Chelsea Clinton as a dog at one point. They compared her looks to that of a dog. And I remember even the right came out against Rush Limbaugh. Now, the weird part, that doesn't necessarily, it didn't apply. Like the media covered the Bush gals when he was in office. I don't know if you remember this, because I remember they started drinking and partying and the news would cover that. And they also covered like the Obama gals when they'd go out and smoke. So there is a weird part where, I guess you're right, where if you are brought into the political world, people can talk about you. It's just the public's perception.
The president's
of the talk
kids
that
have
you're
always
doing.
kind of been involved in that. You know, there was Tad Lincoln way back in the day, I believe.
That was really far back.
you're talking
Lincoln.
Tad
Who's
Lincoln,
that?
like Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln's
No,
son.
I'm just
who the hell
referring
calls him
back to
Tad?
like famous children of presidents. You know, Tad Lincoln was like
Oh,
a
it's
beloved
his
fixture
son.
of the White House.
Yes, he wasn't calling Abraham
No.
Lincoln Tad.
No.
He was referring to Abraham Lincoln's son, Tad,
Got
which
it.
is not a good name.
And Teddy Roosevelt's daughter was notorious for like smoking on the
Screw that
roof.
guy.
And at one point, someone
she
asked him
was.
why he couldn't stop his daughter from smoking during functions, and he was like, "I can govern the country, or I can control Alice. I cannot possibly do both."
Well, he didn't either.
Yeah, it seems like he didn't either, as Brandon will talk about in just a moment. But I believe there's a difference between the president's kids and Elon's kids.
It was distracting.
Yeah, but speaking of distracting, here's this other headline that really got the story going. Bride struggles through vows as baby screams during ceremony. And this video went viral on TikTok, has millions of views now, and sparked a whole debate on whether children should even be allowed at weddings. So of those of you who are married or have been married at any point, did you have a kid-friendly wedding? Did you allow children?
I will not go to a wedding that doesn't allow kids, period.
Actually, hold on, elaborate, because I want to hear your reasoning for that.
I find that to be, but not offensive in that sense. I'd like taking my kids places. If they're going to have first of all, it shows a bit of a finickiness of the person organizing it. And I don't want to be judgmental because I don't know if any of you have done that and think it's appropriate, but I've literally been invited to weddings where it's no kids, and I said, thank you, I'm not going.
What about long flights? Do you think it's selfish of the parents to bring kids on long flights?
No, because if the parents, okay, at what age kids? Babies?
No, like babies. No, I'm not talking kids. I'm talking babies that will cry because, like, naturally, yeah, you're going to cry if you're a baby and you're on a plane.
Adults need to deal with children acting like children.
It's
Period.
not the
full
baby's
stop.
fault for crying on the plane.
No, but
if you have to travel on a plane, like what we've discussed with when our daughter's born, we're probably going to avoid long plane rides for the foreseeable future until she's a little bit older. But if you're on the plane with the baby, the other passengers kind of need to suck it up. We'll do our best to keep her quiet, but like someone who can't speak feels like their head is in a vice and they're not able to
that's why I
process
said, is
that.
it selfish
Yeah.
of the parents to put the baby in that position than to put the other people in the position of being, like, you know, disrupted by a baby?
Sometimes you got to go somewhere.
Yeah, dude, planes aren't comfortable in general. If you want a comfortable flight experience, the only way that's possible in general is if you get first class and they give you really good earbuds in first class. Obviously,
Or
most people-
Xanax. I can tell you
Or
that much.
Xanax, there you
Xanax
go.
will knock you right out on that flight, not from personal experience, but I can tell you that I know people that they'll take it. By the time they sit down in their plane seat and the time the plane lands, they wake up and go, that was mildly refreshing.
Yeah, so Rob.
On the way to Arizona, I had a lady breastfeeding her crying baby next to me the whole time. We were talking about how great Trump is.
All right, cool.
Yes.
So Rob, at your wedding, or did you have a
We
kid
did not
friendly?
have a wedding.
Okay.
No,
what's
and
your
I've been
opinion
to
on that?
weddings, and I've never had that don't bring a child. I would also never bring a baby to a wedding. I would either find a sitter. Like, if it was my son, okay, that's not true. My sister-in-law got married, and I was dating my wife at the time, and we brought our 6-year-old at the time, and he was completely fine during that. but he's not a baby. If he was a baby and there was a chance that he would disrupt the ceremony, then no, I'm not bringing the child. So I think there should be like an age cutoff. It doesn't have to be said, but it should just be known. Hey, this is kind of morally or socially acceptable, not morally.
Or
socially
if the kid's throwing a hissy fit, you go outside.
Yeah.
So
That was the
Then what you
that
do
was
is
the
you
issue.
grab him by the arm and you drag him. And you go, listen, you little shit.
You can't do that in front of people. You can't.
Yeah, well, you don't say that in front of you. Like, no, let's go for a walk. And then as soon as you turn that corner, you're like, listen.
Well, that was the issue in this viral TikTok of they're in the middle of the vows, and apparently, according to what the
gonna see the
bride
video?
posted, I was gonna not show the video just because we're tight for time.
never
But I
seen it.
mean,
We
go
gotta see
ahead
it.
and play it
for
real
it.
quick if you can.
Wanna see
I
how
don't want
bad
to eat up
this is.
Brandon's segment.
But I'm
No,
the
you're
only
good.
one that knows them. And one of the questions I asked was, when did you know you were in love and wanted to spend the rest of your life together as husband and wife?
Bombastic side eye. Criminal offensive side eye.
So you could hear the baby screeching a little bit in the back.
That
It's
didn't
hard to
sound
hear
that
from that
bad.
video.
That's more like the person that was filming that is now upset because they're not going to be able to put it on their Instagram.
Oh,
about the
it
baby
was the
crying.
bride herself who was speaking out about how she was frustrated by it, advising that no one ever bring a baby to a wedding ever. What part of the issue was that the guy who had the baby said he drove 10 hours to be at the wedding and he wasn't going to leave the room even when the kids started screaming. So I think both of them are a little bit wrong here because weddings are supposed to be, you know, like fun family functions. I remember when my wife and I got married, our pastor's daughter was like 3 years old. She ran up to the table when we were at the reception and was so excited because she was acting like she was meeting a Disney princess. She didn't recognize my wife in the dress. She just saw pretty dress, makeup. It must be a princess, and she wanted a hug and a picture and everything.
Well, if we're going to talk about wedding etiquette quickly, a few things, and then we'll go to Brandon's segment about why we must remove
few
Teddy
things.
Roosevelt from Mount Rushmore.
Right now.
Yes. First of all, when it comes to weddings, no more picking a dish. Buffets are the way to go. Does everybody agree? Buffet is the perfect
No,
spread.
buffets are where you spread giardia and germs and colds.
Oh, I love it. Buffet is my favorite meal. When they go, what's your favorite meal? Buffet. I love it. Second, destination weddings, bullshit. Stop inviting me to go on a vacation you want to go on, and then I have to spend money on a plane ticket. And then on top of that, my presence isn't enough to be the present. I also have to get you a gift. Go fuck yourself. And then finally, and third, and probably most importantly, has anybody here ever seen Old School?
Oh, yeah, of
I
course.
think it should be
You're my
mandatory
boy,
that
Blue.
every wedding moving forward have the Dan Band play as the wedding band. They are the best band in the world. If you've not looked up the Dan Band, go and look them up on Spotify and YouTube. They play the best music.
Oh,
in
that
every
guy
band.
the guy that swears all the time.
I fucking need
Yeah,
you more
yeah,
than ever.
yeah.
That should be the band that you have playing at your wedding. Make it a fun activity, not an emotional one. Brandon, why does Teddy Roosevelt suck, and why should we remove him from Mount Rushmore?
All right, so Teddy Roosevelt. Like, I honestly did not even realize that he was on Mount Rushmore until we stumbled upon it like a week or two. So you know they say like
State of our civics education, right?
No,
there,
but you know
folks.
they have the saying that I've forgotten more about this topic than you'll ever know about. Like old people say, people like that's
Yeah.
me for like everything. Like I've forgotten more about like almost everything out there than most people know about it. So I forgot that Teddy Roosevelt was on Mount Rushmore. But when we came across that, like hasn't sat right with me since. So this dude Roosevelt not only did his buddies assassinate President McKinley, but he well, so first let me say why they justified each person being on Mount Rushmore. Washington obviously created the nation. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Constitution. And then they say Theodore Roosevelt because he developed industrial growth and built the Panama Canal. The only reason he built the Panama Canal is because that was like the stretch time where we didn't have a central bank holding the country captive. So he got to use the fruits of the labor from not having a central bank and the country actually being rich for a period of time. First of all, and then Lincoln, obviously the last one because of the Civil War and all that stuff. But so
The Civil War and all that stuff.
Whose administration was it that the Mount Rushmore was built under? Because
it was built from 27 to 41. 1927 to 1941.
Who decided what presidents were going on?
This guy named why'd you give me that look? This guy named Gutzon Borglum, a sculptor.
Wait, you're telling me Mount Rushmore was completed in the 40s?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, this is the complete state of American history. Because I minored in history in college.
Wow.
I would have assumed Mount Rushmore was done in like,
Hold on.
but by the turn of the century.
Mount Rushmore is not a natural phenomenon? What's the big deal then? So they made some people's faces in a mountain. Okay, that's a joke, people. That's a joke.
It's not like an iconic part of I guess our country or whatever, but like to group in Teddy Roosevelt, those other guys, and the fact that people have this idea of Roosevelt being some good president. Like he's responsible for the worst president, the most destructive force in the history of America. Like off the top of your head, who do you think I'm talking about?
The Bull Moose Party.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And like real quick, before I start talking about this, did you guys have a positive or negative idea of Roosevelt?
Before this, somewhat positive.
Yeah, I'm not.
But I'm also very ignorant.
I mean, come on, national parks, the teddy bear, he seems
Trust Buster.
Yeah, the Rough Riders and all. Like he seems like a good, manly guy. You know, like that time he got shot in the chest and then was like, "Oh, I'm just going to finish my speech."
Might have been staged.
Oh yeah, no, I liked him for that reason. Like that was just such a badass story.
I'm very curious now how you're going to try to ruin Teddy Roosevelt for
He got
us.
shot in the chest?
And then went and did his speech.
Did it break skin?
He had like his wallet right here.
No, it was the copy of the speech. It was so thick, the bullet only punctured part way. So like the bullet remained in his chest for the rest of his life, I believe, because it just didn't go far enough to hit anything.
Well, then that's not fixed. Now hold on, who brought in the Income Tax Act?
Woodrow Wilson.
Okay, so fine.
Don't get him started. You hate Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is the bad one. But Teddy sounds terrible.
And he's the reason for Woodrow Wilson. So this picture right here, it's a picture that was in a newspaper that shows him with a bunch of communists there. I think that's Karl Marx and Trotsky. So like it was a known thing that he was rubbing elbows with the communist people. So the way that he was responsible for Woodrow Wilson, if we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So William Taft was the president in 1908 to 1912, super popular, crushed it in the 1908 election. Then 1912, they don't want William Taft to get reelected because he's opposing the Aldrich plan, which is the plan for the Federal Reserve. You know, the creature from Jekyll Island, the Jekyll Island Club, Nelson Aldrich, who was the Chuck Schumer of the time, who was the House Majority Senate leader. He was like talking with the bankers about creating this central bank, which is now the Federal Reserve, because we were on a break. Like we did not have a central bank since Andrew Jackson destroyed it, which is why I think Andrew Jackson should replace Teddy Roosevelt on Mount Rushmore. So from 1836 to 1913, we didn't have a central bank, and it was the most prosperous time in American history. So they say, all right, this guy Taft is opposing the central bank, so we can't have that. But he was too popular for any of their candidates to be outright because Woodrow Wilson was their cuck candidate. So they say, hey, that guy Teddy Roosevelt, he's a popular guy. He could actually serve a term because he only was president because his actual president got assassinated when he was vice president. Remember McKinley, who a lot of people also think the international bankers had him assassinated because of his protectionist policies and his opposition to a central bank. So they trot out Roosevelt and the Bull Moose Party, throw a ton of money behind him, throw a ton of public media support. And this is all stuff that's confirmed in Senate hearings that J.P. Morgan, who is like a front man for the Rothschild, like the name J.P. Morgan on the bank right now should be called Rothschild Cuck because he died a poor man. J.P. Morgan was not a rich guy. He was completely a front man for the Rothschilds. That's completely confirmed. And so it was J.P. Morgan and this bank called Kuhn and Loeb that were just throwing money at Roosevelt, and they actually threw money at all three candidates because they didn't want to make it look suspicious. So they took enough votes away from Taft because Roosevelt was like very similar to him, like a Ross Perot situation, to where Woodrow Wilson won the election with less than 50% of the popular vote.
Yeah, I mean that
that
stands to reason. And if I'm remembering my history lessons correctly.
Oh, don't show that. That's a surprise, Nat. Don't show that yet.
Roosevelt and Taft were friends for a very long time. And then when Roosevelt reemerged in politics trying to regain office after having left, Taft was like personally hurt by it because his friend was suddenly saying, I have no confidence in you. I'm forming a third party to try to take you out of office. And now that, we have all this information about the money behind it, it sort of paints a clearer picture of why.
Teacher, what's the relation between Eugene V. Debs and the graph that we're seeing?
Eugene V. Debs.
Eugene V. Debs. That was the case where
other notable candidates.
Okay, because Eugene V. Debs, that was the guy that was locked away while he was running for president, and that was the precedent to say that if you're convicted of a felony, you can still run for president, at least from a legal precedent.
And this was the socialist organizer who was in prison.
He was
he's on that list because if you see the pie charts down there, there's a little purple sliver. That's for the Socialist Party.
Yeah. So then what's his name? This guy named Colonel House, who was the guy that told Woodrow Wilson what to do for everything that he did. He comes out and outright says, quote, Teddy Roosevelt got Woodrow Wilson elected. And if you want to know more about this guy, House, who was the acting president when Woodrow Wilson was there, Woodrow Wilson was a complete puppet in every sense of the word. He is quoted as saying that, his father got rich because he was an operator for the Rothschilds during the Civil War, the only person in the South who got rich. And he was quoted as saying that he wants his kids to be subservient to European bankers and not to America first. So this is the guy who was making all the decisions under Woodrow Wilson. He's the guy who pushed for the Federal Reserve, pushed for the IRS, and then Woodrow Wilson in his second term, he's like his whole promise in 1960, he's like, "Oh, guys, we'll never go into the war. We will not go into World War I. Trust me. Like the last thing we'll ever do is go into World War I." Gets elected, and the next day, like you got to go World War I. You got to fight for democracy.
To say nothing of his alleged vegetative state for the latter half of his term, where his wife, like after he had a stroke, they didn't tell the country about it.
Yeah.
Edith Wilson was essentially running the country.
Oh, sounds familiar.
It was still Colonel House.
Where she was, holding his hand to sign documents.
Well, and you're hearing now about 2020 2021 through 2024, how Hunter Biden and Jill Biden were sitting in on private cabinet meetings with Joe Biden and making decisions on behalf of Biden for the rest of allegedly.
And at the end of World War I, I know this is like a side thing, but what was Woodrow Wilson's big project?
The League of Nations. Yeah.
Which fell apart because the U.S. wouldn't get involved. What was League of Nations Part 2? United Nations after World War II. So it's like you have a bunch of people who steer us into a world war. Ends with, what if we made this giant global conglomerate world government to run everything so world wars don't happen again? And then they just kept doing world wars until they got one that worked.
I literally can speak 3 hours for every bad, evil, sick, twisted discussing that Woodrow Wilson did to
which you frequently do bad on the Brandon Aceto show.
I know, yeah, exactly, and I'll talk about later tonight too, because I have a whole sequence of videos to show about this, but. Like, ask Umberto. Like, I complain about Woodrow Wilson at least 3 times a week. Like, he's responsible for funding the Bolsheviks and the Nazis. Him and Wall Street gave money to the Bolsheviks, helped overthrow Russia, the Tsar, and helped Hitler get money after Germany was wiped out. So every single bad thing that happened started here with Woodrow Wilson being a cuck for the bankers, because the bankers just want death and destruction. So what do you guys think about that? I know I'm kind of.
I just say League of Nations sounds like a good Marvel movie, but
it does. But I mean,
you need to be more convincing, though, Brandon. I've asked the chat, should he be removed? And so far, it's only a slight lead on yes. It's 52 to 48.
Well,
so what else?
He has a mustache in.
All right, how about this? Oh, sorry. How about this? If that's not enough, I'm glad I saved this for last. According to Ron Chernow or whatever his name is,
Ron Chernow, the documentary or the
author, wrote a book called The House of Morgan, where in the book he says that Teddy Roosevelt and J.P. Morgan were secret blood brothers.
What does that mean? Like when you cut your fingers and you shake hands and now you're blood brothers, or they're actually related brothers?
He seems to be alleging they were actually related, from what I could gather. I mean, he kind of just glosses over it. Like he says, they were secret blood brothers, but I mean. At the very least, it means that there was a fake fight, like the whole trust buster thing with Teddy Roosevelt. Like he was, in reality, making them stronger, if anything. And then at the worst case scenario, they were legitimately brothers and colluding the entire time. But if you guys don't like international bankers like the Rothschilds and the Warburgs and everything, and you can't like Teddy Roosevelt at the same time as you're disliking those guys. So I don't know why that polls at that level.
Bunch of globalist cucks in the chat today.
Yeah, you guys are globalists.
Yeah. So if you were to take him off of Mount Rushmore,
Andrew Jackson all day. Andrew Jackson.
So not Trump.
Not yet. No. He has to. Andrew Jackson successfully destroyed the central bank, so Trump needs to do the same thing. End the Fed, and Trump will be on Mount Rushmore.
Okay, here. Let me give you a hypothetical here, Brandon. Say Mount Rushmore is currently blank. There is no one on it.
Yep.
What 4 people are you putting on Mount Rushmore as it currently stands?
Washington, Andrew Jackson, Trump over Thomas Jefferson, I guess, deserves a spot because of the Constitution. Lincoln gets a little bit more credit than he deserves because his intentions weren't as,
altruistic.
Yeah, not as altruistic as people portray it to be, because it was nothing to do with slavery. It was just all about preserving the nation. He literally said before the Civil War, I don't care if we have slavery or not slavery. As long as we preserve the nation, I'm cool with it. So he used slavery as a way to recruit people to fight because it was a better sales pitch.
Maybe that's a bad argument.
Sorry. That's who you would choose ultimately if you had to only pick one to replace him. Would
Andrew
you pick
Andrew Jackson right now. Yeah.
Who says it has to be filled with 4 good presidents? Make it 4 terrible presidents. Everybody shows
John
up to
Quincy
cheer.
Adams, Millard Fillmore.
May I ask, and maybe this is a bad comparison, but did you have a problem where we were tearing down statues of Confederate soldiers or renaming military forts of Confederate military personnel because of woke times?
Rob's calling you a hypocrite.
I'm asking. I started this and I prefaced it with maybe it's a bad comparison, but I'm wondering, just because your viewpoint on Teddy Roosevelt is that it's a negative one, should he be removed? Did you also have similar problems when other people had negative viewpoints about Confederate soldiers and statues that were honoring them?
I mean, I didn't have strong feelings about that, but I put international bankers as the worst people in the world. So, like, I mean, yeah, like Confederate soldiers, like you could say some bad things about them, but international bankers are immensely worse than them. So,
okay, so on the list of bad people, where can we? International bankers is number 1.
Yeah, like next to the devil.
What's number 2?
Next to the devil.
When you say international banker, are you talking about like
the Rothschilds and the Warburgs and the
Okay.
people who started the Federal Reserve? Like, because they're the same people who started the first and second central bank. Like, I don't know. Like, it's crazy to me how these families keep it like going strong at this all the time. Like, normally families fall apart and like are spoiled and shit, but they keep it going strong somehow.
And do you know the actual Rothschild's net worth, or is that a mystery like Putin's?
20 trillion estimated.
So how much is Elon worth?
500 billion.
So wouldn't they be the richest people in
they
the
are.
world?
Yeah, they are.
How come every time it says Elon Musk richest person in
Because
the
it's
world?
divided among
by the
No, because they own all that stuff.
And it's
Brendan,
unclear what their
Who do you
aggregated
really
wealth
mean
is.
by the international bankers?
The Rothschilds and the Warburgs primarily. Oh, I see what you're saying.
And we're going to end today's episode on that note. We are less than 1,000. I'm sorry, less than 1,000 subscribers. No, 1,100. So more than 1,000 subscribers, but we are on our way to 100,000 subscribers on the Unusual Suspects channel. If you have not done so already, please do us a favor. Make sure you like today's episode. Make sure you comment underneath. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Brandon, you do a show every night. Where can people find your work?
The Brandon Aceto show. Well, Brandon Aceto channel, 8:30 p.m. every single night.
Link in the description.
You need to spell your name, though. It's ACEDO, not ASS.
T-O.
Aceto.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to help you.
Brandon, while we're quiet, spell it real quick so people actually.
BRANDONACETO.
Guys, it's in the
Everybody knew how to spell Brandon.
It's in the description every time. We don't need to do spelling. But
Amy, what can you promote today?
You guys can check me out at Amy Dangerfield on YouTube.
Connor, where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter, Connor-VT. You can read my articles over at VT.com. And I'm here most weeks. So
Viva Frei, where can people find you?
Internet, Viva Frei, and the author of the self-published children's book, Louis the Lobster Returns to the Sea, which my wife put together, and a member of our locals community's daughter, illustrated, Abigail Martin. But Viva Frei, put it in there. You'll find me everywhere.
And I am on Connect. So if you're looking to connect, whether it's podcasting or just lonely and want to see photos of my feet, Connect, the link is in the description. For myself, the people in the back that are making today happen, Natalia, Jake, who is switching for us today? Do we have any idea? Andres. Oh, sexy Andres. All right, Andres. Everybody that made today's show happen, Kelly, and, of course, Vinny for allowing us to do this without him. Thank you for watching. To you, the audience, make sure you like, subscribe, and join us next Wednesday. We will be back live 4 p.m. Eastern Time right here on the Unusual Suspects channel. Take care. Bye-bye.
Booyah.